Secretary Rumsfeld.
The committee meets today to receive testimony from Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld, Acting Director of Central Intelligence John E. McLaughlin, and Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff General Richard B. Myers, on the implications for the Department of Defense and current and future military operations of proposals to reorganize the U.S. intelligence community. We welcome our witnesses, and I see that you're joined by Dr. Cambone. We welcome you.
These recommendations raise a host of questions that need to be considered as we reform our intelligence community. The relationship between intelligence and defense entities and their specific responsibilities and authorities are not questions of turf. They are vitally important to both the security and well-being of our nation and the safety of our troops, is independently and objectively analyzed and presented. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Levin. Mr. Secretary, we welcome again your appearance here. I recognize you just got back from an important trip to our forces abroad, and recognize that you've been in consultation this morning at the White House, I presume, perhaps to this subject and others, and we're anxious to hear your views.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I appreciate this opportunity to discuss the subject of strengthening the intelligence community in the United States, as well as some of the recommendations of the 9/11 Commission.
General Myers.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, Senator Levin, and members of the committee for your support of our ongoing efforts to improve our intelligence capabilities. As you know, our military has been working diligently since 9/11 to break down intelligence barriers and to better integrate with other agencies of our government and our allies. We've accomplished a great deal, but we still have much work left to do. And I can think of no more important issue to our national security and to the men and women of our armed forces in harm's way around the world.
Everyone in the intelligence community understands that NSA, NGA, NRO, all vital parts of the national intelligence community, are also combat support agencies.
And that in turn is representative of the various interests that are at play in building that budget at the direction of the DCI today.
We'll now proceed to around 6 minutes per senator.
I know there's some frustration I've sensed that we wish we'd had better intelligence on, I guess, in every conflict we've ever been in. But how do your people respond to this?
Let me start out by saying we clearly have the greatest military in the world, and part of the reason it is the greatest military in the world is because we've got this integration of operations intelligence that I talked about earlier in my opening statement. So with that as backdrop, we have talked now on many occasions with our combatant commanders and with the service chiefs on intelligence and intelligence reform.
Thank you for your service. I think you have every right to speak aggressively about the good things that have occurred since 9/11.
And I want to ask you whether there isn't a way, perhaps borrowed from your current joint operations with CIA, for instance, where you couldn't have the counterterrorism center's planning operations, but then subjected to a review or a veto by the Secretary of Defense.
I have been inviting in former Secretaries of Defense, former DCIs, former National Security Advisors, I met at lunch with Dick Myers, called in the former chairman and vice chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. I've called people to talk about these issues because they're terribly important. I've spent a lot of time, and I have not developed conviction on a lot of the details that, and as we said, the devil's in the details. You darn well better get it right, because we're dealing with very important things for our country, and I just haven't gotten conviction down to the third and fourth level in this yet to feel that I can sit here and say authoritatively something.
I thank you, Mr. Secretary. I thank you, Director. I thank you, General. We've had a very good hearing.